There exists a surprising amount of disagreement regarding how money came about, and even more importantly, what precisely money is. Hayek commented that he wished money was treated as an adjective rather than a noun, with various things able to convey a particular degree of moneyness. As we've seen, the production process has been organized historically in myriad different ways. The same can be said of the distribution of goods produced through these processes, with the collection and distribution of various goods conducted, for example, through temples, tribal councils, or state treasuries. These examples aren't what we'd consider exchange economies, yet even outside of direct exchange, the need arose for an instrument that made various goods commensurate, by which one could say this many bushels of barley was equivalent to this many cows, such as in Mesopotamia, or this many shoes was equivalent to building a house, which we saw with Aristotle. Thus, the unit of account, or numeraire, is a dimensionless unit that emerges as a necessary function of this thing known as money, and any commodity can take on this quality of moneyness. Thinking now of more explicitly exchange-oriented economies, historical and anthropological evidence suggests that these economies, centered as they were within tightly knit communities, developed elaborate credit and gift exchange systems. People remembered what they had provided for others at their time of need and expected they would be provided for when their time of need arose. The double coincidence of wants was not required to be coincidental in time. Providing potatoes at one point in time was understood to allow for the provision of shoes at another point. These de facto credit systems could be organized with credit instruments such as knotted strings, tally sticks, paper IOUs, or running tabs at the local dry cleaners. People generally are and ever have been innovative and clever, and this cleverness applied to the problem of multilateral and asynchronous good exchanges and yielded a variety of solutions. These IOU instruments themselves could be used as means of exchange, given backing by an entity that people believed would settle appropriately upon presentation of the instrument. There is an anecdote of an American Marine revisiting Hong Kong after a year and discovering that one of his IOUs was still in circulation. Thus, credit instruments have moneyness with regards to both immediate and atemporal exchange. So how did what we primarily think of as money, coins and notes, emerge? One line of thinking is that such things are a consequence of wars and taxation. Monarchs or governments going to war needed two things: supplies for traveling troops and means to pay the troops and procure armaments. What seemed to work was to have an army travel through a land and, rather than pillage the countryside, offer money in exchange for consumables. The soldiers were themselves paid in this money. The people of the land providing such consumables would be encouraged to accept the money because they needed it to pay taxes, and the monarch or state would only accept taxes in this form. Another line of thinking is that precious metals, i.e. gold and silver, were used to facilitate long-distance exchange between strangers, situations where credit relationships were infeasible. These metals were minted into coins to ease transactions. Coins would be valued at more than their composition metal, otherwise people would collect and melt down the coins. So even here we have an aspect of moneyness that relies on social agreement. These two differing views are captured in what's known as the chartalist versus bullionist views, or sometimes the metalists, each of which contains its own implications and ramifications. Essentially, anything exchangeable could acquire moneyness, including consumables. But to be really useful, whatever is used as money should only be used for exchange. If the consumption demand for consumable money rises, prices will fluctuate with the availability of the money. If the quantity of exchange money falls because people are instead consuming it, then each bit of money in circulation needs to encompass more value. Thus, prices will rise to make this happen. Therefore, money used for exchange should only be used for exchange and not as a consumable itself. Which reminds us of the vehement and persistent warnings against processes by which money breeds, or creates more money without representing an exchange of goods, sometimes referred to as the real economy. Money's primary function and natural use was understood as a medium of exchange, and the unit of account function arose naturally in this context. Breeding money was understood as unnatural, and when done systematically would shift money from the exchange process, and money would itself become a commodity. Accumulated deferred purchasing power was understood to have a deleterious effect on prices and real exchange, and interruption of the flow. This exchange flow of money itself is a signifier of underlying economic processes that play out across time and space, and it's these processes that are critical to understand. Money, in some sense, is a prestige, detracting from what is economically relevant. For example, the scholastics claim that when the use of borrowed money seems to be profitable, it is an illusion to attribute this profit to money. Money itself doesn't have agency. Another way to think about this is that money is like words, which convey meaning. Meaning is exchanged in conversation, not words, even though the words carry the meaning. In summary, money describes numerous mechanisms that facilitate exchange between multiple parties over time. Moneyness has three distinct yet linked qualities: a propensity to flow signifying exchange, a store of value over time, and a neutral term of account described as the numeraire.